Hello. Thanks very much. I hope you all enjoyed your lunch and are all energized and ready for this afternoon. So I'm Chris. I'm the Digital Platforms and Developments Manager at the University of York in the marketing team there. Now what that means is I'm responsible for implementing and maintaining the systems that we've got and looking after our team there, but pretty much just making web stuff. I'm going to explain a little bit today what it's like to work in the educational sector, what it's like to work in such a big organization and still try and implement some agile, responsive kind of practices. But first, I've got a story. This is the HMS Victoria. In 1893, she was in manoeuvres in the Mediterranean. The admiral of the fleet was on board, so top brass, and he was over here leading a column of 5 ships. And about a kilometre over to the port, I don't know, one of the sides, his second in command was there, leading another column of ships. And they were coming towards the end of the exercise, and he wanted to do one last manoeuvre, and he wanted to turn the ships around 180 degrees and head back the way they were going. And so he signalled over to his second in command and said, turn 180 degrees to the starboard right now. And his second in command signalled back, really? Or something to that effect. And the Admiral said, yes, I'm the Admiral, so turn 180 degrees to... I've failed my semaphore GCSE, so if this isn't making sense, that's fine. Turn 180 degrees to starboard. Second in command says, yeah, okay. And they start turning. But the way he'd signalled it, they turned inwards towards each other, and these were big ships, 100 metres long. They had a turning circle of about half a kilometre. And since they were only a kilometre apart, as they turned in towards each other, they collided. And the HMS Victoria sank. Now, what's the moral of this story? Well, there are some things that are really tricky to do, and being in charge of boats is one of them. I think admiraling is the correct term. It's also really tricky sometimes to talk back to someone who's in charge. So the second in command knew that something was going to happen if they did that, but he didn't have the confidence to gainsay his superior. But the thing I really want to talk about is that it's really hard to turn a big ship. It's really, really tricky when you've got all this force going forwards to turn it round all the way. And sometimes it takes a lot of time and space to do that. So I've been working at the university for 3 years. In fact, it is my work anniversary today. So it's 3 years today that I moved there. And one of the things that I've noticed is that the processes and procedures that are in place at a big organization like a university can often slow down the innovation and creativity. There's often a lot of process that you need to go through before you can get a sort of rubber stamp on the thing. Sorry, I'm having a load of... This can really stifle people's creativity, and they don't think they can change the direction that the organization is heading. Now, you might be thinking, well, I don't work at a big organization, I don't work at a university, so why is this relevant to me? Well, even if your organizational chart doesn't look anything like this, and this is our marketing team and all the different hierarchies that are in place, even if that's not the case for you, you might have something that looks a bit more like this, where you're director of everything. But these are relevant for you too, because even if you work as a freelancer, you might be working within a big organization. Even if you work at an agency, you may take on as your next project something that involves decision makers in a big organization. Or your next career step might be to go and work at one of these places, and it's important to know exactly what you can and can't do. Wherever a lot of people come together to work together, there's always going to be these structures and hierarchies in place. And they're supposed to be there in order to provide stability and to provide accountability, but often what they can do is just provide rigidity. At the university, we have a lot of these systems and a lot of these organizations in place. And we love to call them by different acronyms. We love to just add them and add them. When you first turn up at a place, you think, what are all these things? And we even have here, we do have 2 CMSs. We have our content management system, but we also have our Centre for Medieval Studies. It's important not to confuse the two. This one is our Office for Marketing Governance here. And this last one is the Wellbeing Task Force. They're not really. And another factor is simply the scale of the organization. The smaller a company is, the easier it is to get all the decision makers together in one room to make a decision and go with it. And if it's not working out, to change direction and go again. But big organizations have all these component parts that are all pulling in different directions. Ed Catmull, who is one of the founders of Pixar, he talks about the concept of taming the beast. And this is where you have to adapt to every single component within your organization. He says that when Pixar are making a film, what Pixar wants to do is make a film. But their finance department wants the film to come in under budget. And their digital effects team want it to look flawless. And their merchandising team wants to sell lunchboxes and cuddly toys. So all of these competing forces can be pulling against the main aim of the organization. And he summarizes it like this, and he says, in an unhealthy culture, each group believes that if their objectives trump the goals of the other groups, the company will be better off. But in a healthy culture, all constituencies recognize the importance of balancing competing desires. They want to be heard, but they don't have to win. And that's really important when you're working in one of these organizations, to know that the bit that you're doing, whilst it's really important, isn't the aim of the organization. This is the University of York's strategy. It's a fascinating read. You probably can't quite pick it out from there, but it can be summarized in these things. So, the university wants to offer outstanding teaching, we want to do world-class research, and we want to give students an amazing student experience. That's the core of what we do as a university. But our student recruitment team just wants to fill up the course places. They want to get the best students on all the courses. Our finance team makes sure we don't run out of money, and our student support team looks after the physical and mental well-being of our students. They all have different things that they're doing, none of which are the aim of the university, but all of which are very important parts of it. So with all these competing forces pulling in different directions, it's no wonder that steering the ship can be really tricky. So what does it mean to try and work in an agile way in this kind of structure? Well, I was my own boss for a while, and I've worked in small and medium-sized agencies, and now I'm working at a large organization. And in all the teams that I've worked in, the one thing that seems to make a team work more smoothly is the culture of that team. So this is the dictionary definition of culture in regards to business. It's the philosophy, practices, and attitudes of an institution, business, or other organization. So as Bananarama rightly put it, it's not what you do, it's the way that you do it. And that is the thing that gets you results. So it's not about what you do, it's about how you do it. And the three things to do to create that good team culture is to make sure that you're doing something meaningful, that you can trust people who are working for you to make their own decisions, and that you then listen to what they're saying. So with that first one, we're not all going to be changing the world. We can't all work on things that are going to have a huge impact. We're not going to work on the next Facebook. But if we believe that the work we're doing does have some intrinsic value, has some intrinsic worth, it means that we're much more likely to want to make those decisions together. Higher education is a really good case in point. I know that whatever crap I have to deal with in my day-to-day job, however mundane the tasks are, I know that there's a small part of a fraction of a percentage that lets people come and study. It gives them a qualification, and they get to spend 3 years in beautiful York. And this will come in handy later when I pitch our recruitment to you. Now, you might be working for a holiday company, or a supermarket, or a bank, but if you can believe that the work you're doing is helping people go on a nice holiday, or buy their Christmas dinner for their loved ones, or get a loan to start a business, if you think that the thing that you're doing has value, it really helps you to keep a positive mindset, even when faced with these competing forces. But it's a big but companies run the risk of becoming really inert if either consciously or unconsciously they lose the trust of their staff. So I work in an organization where there's a real fear of failure. People are really worried they're going to make a mistake and do something wrong. So they just stick to the same way they've always done it. A refrain we hear a lot is, but that's how we've always done it. Why do we need to do anything different? And Ed Catmull from Pixar again says, the fear-based, failure-averse culture, people will consciously or unconsciously avoid risk. They'll seek instead to repeat something safe that's been good enough in the past. Their work will be derivative, not innovative. By giving people responsibility for their work, trusting them to do the job which, after all, they have been hired to do, teams will become more energized and they'll start to make better decisions. It's kind of ironic, actually, that I work in a marketing and communications team, and one of the things that we're really not very good at is communicating within our team. We're okay in our small groups because we sit at desks next to each other. And across the university, if our vice-chancellor wants to send out a message to all the staff, he can do that. But the communications between the different teams is really, really poor. Everyone works in their own little group. We're all part of our own little silo of work. And there are people solving the same problems in these different teams in different ways. And it's really hard to get around that. People are so used to working in that little bubble that they don't want to look outside it. So how can we fix this? Well, first of all, this is just a warning that I haven't got the right answer. We're not doing this completely right in my own team at the moment, let alone across the whole university. But I think I've got some things to talk about that can make it work better. And thing number one is to work with what you've got. So the University of York employs 6,000 members of staff. That's lecturers, administrators, cleaning staff, grounds people. That's 6,000 different people's ideas and experiences and knowledge and careers that you can tap into. Every big organization has as its key resource human resources. So here's some practical tips on how we're using people better. My next slide, I do have a word which I really hate, and I apologize if I offend anyone when I show it. But we've set up this group to try and find better ways to work together. Anyone can join it. There's a weekly drop-in meeting where you can discuss ideas to see if anyone's had these problems and has solved them before. And there's a Slack channel where we can drop in and out and ask people's advice. And so we're working across the university to try and find some synergy. I apologize, it's a horrible word, but it kind of means the right thing. It's been really good to meet up with different people doing different jobs all over the university to try and find some areas of commonality where we can actually work together. Another resource that we have a lot of on campus are students. You might remember students, you see them wandering around campuses a lot and then camping out in the library when it's exam time. But we use students in a few ways to try and help us work better. So we do usability tests with potential students who are visiting us for open days. We've employed a few of them to become bloggers. So they write about their experience of being a student, which we use in marketing, we use on our website. And I have more plans for it as well. We have a whole computer science department that is full of people who enjoy messing about with computers. I'd love to tap into that resource to try and get them to do some of the wackier projects that we just don't have the resource to do. And we have marketing students who know loads more about what it's like to be a 20-year-old in 2018 than I do. So wherever you work, you can use the people around you, your customers or your suppliers, or anyone who comes into contact with your business to find out the things you're doing right and the things that you could be doing better. The next thing is about improving your team culture. So our marketing team is about 40 people, which is developers, designers, content writers, and we're a pretty new team, and we've been brought together from all around the university. One of the things we're trying to do better is to let people have a say in the things that are happening in the team by setting up these working groups. So one group meets to decide on our office working environment, the things we can do to improve our office space. One meets to decide on where our work processes are falling down. And the other one looks at team days and activities that we can do. And the aim is to say to these people, well, you work here, you know what issues we face, how can we fix it? And I'll be honest, some of the results, they've been mixed, but we've had a few successes. So simple things like we've got a few magazine subscriptions that we've got in our kitchen. So we have the Times Higher for the academically minded. And we have Creative Review for the artistically minded, and we also have Hello. And we've also circumvented the whole we don't have enough mugs in the kitchen argument that always happens by having a team afternoon where we all painted our own. This is my one down here. I was very pleased with it. Doing simple things like that really brought us together as a team and allowed us to share ideas better. My next tip is one that I'd really like to get some feedback on. We've not implemented it yet, but we're planning to, and it's about everybody's favourite waste of time, which is meetings. So we've all been this guy, haven't we, sitting thinking, what is happening here? Someone puts an hour in your calendar for a meeting and you think, I've no idea what this is about, but I'll go along anyway. And you turn up, someone's late because they've been making a cup of tea, and then you need to chat to someone because they've just come back from holiday and you want to find out how it went. And then it's 15 minutes gone in the meeting and you haven't even started yet. They're kind of unavoidable, but they're easier to handle when you know what they're for. So I've been thinking we need to define what our types of meeting are that we do. And I'm not the first person to think of this. When I was researching it, I just did a quick Google and I found the 6 most common types of meeting. I thought, okay, that's fine. Let's do a bit more research. And then, 5 types of meetings, all you need to know. Oh, okay. And then I found the 4 major types of meetings. And I thought, okay, well, I think we can go one better. So we're going to go with 3 different types. And I'm not going to go into what they are, but the information sharing one is one we're going to have really tight timescales. People are going to turn up and they're going to say their thing that they want to share with the team. And that's it, they're not for an extended discussion. Decision-making meetings should have a really fixed agenda. They should have the information shared with people before they get there. So actually the meeting is about making a decision, not finding out what you're talking about. And then our brainstorming meetings are going to be ones where actually we just need to come up with ideas. We might be scribbling on whiteboards and post-it notes and Sharpies and things like that. So the third thing is about our communication. One of the biggest gripes in large organizations is that management don't listen, that they don't understand what actually is going on the ground. And I suspect that the senior management team at the university thinks that a lot of our staff don't really know what the big picture view is. Just an aside, I did struggle to figure out how I could illustrate a big picture view, so I just drew a really big picture. But I think both of these groups of people are right. I think that there's no way that our Vice-Chancellor could know what everybody's J job is. And there's also a lot of big picture things that we really can't understand when we're just doing our day-to-day jobs. But we can get around this by making sure that people aren't scared to communicate across and up and down the team, across the whole university. You need to create an environment where people aren't afraid to share things, and they're not scared to speak up. And it starts with everyone who manages someone to let them know that they're trusted. And when we trust people that we work with, it means you don't just want to hear when they've done something good that you're proud of. You want to hear when they've not done too well. So there are a few reactions that a boss can have when they've been told that something has gone wrong. And the first one is called the rebound. So, boss, I've just deleted that really important document. Well, what do you want me to do about it? You go and fix it. Not that helpful. The second one is the blame and fix. Boss, I've just deleted that other really important document. Get out the way, let me have a look. Well, if you want something doing, you've got to do it yourself. That's boss type 2. And the third one is the buck passer. Boss, I've just deleted that other really important document. Oh, have you? Ooh. Hello, hi Dan, yeah, can you come down? I think we need a bit more of a senior input on this. So, actually, all of those responses might be right. It may well be that what we need to do when someone's done something wrong is to encourage them to fix it themselves. It may well be that, as a manager, we need to step in and help them take them through it. Or it may well be that we need to escalate it up to someone higher up in the chain. But the way we initially respond to those errors when they happen really tells us a lot about the culture of the group you're working in. And it can really be damaging if when those errors occur, you try and cover it up. So I have absolute respect for businesses which, when they've been confronted by human errors, they've admitted it and they've made public how they're going to fix it. So last year, GitLab deleted they call it a database outage. Someone deleted a database, and then when they came to back it up, they realized that their backup systems hadn't been working properly. But they were very transparent about what had happened and what they were doing to ensure it never happened again. And you can't cut human error out of jobs like ours, even with all our build scripts and our automations. We're still fallible people working with dumb machines. But how we react to it tells us a lot about the way that our business works. So even if you start doing these things, even if you do start listening more and trying to react better, how can you tell if it's making a difference? Apart from, the warm, fuzzy glow that you get when you walk in the office in the morning, how can you really tell? Well, we're back onto communication again. So if you're working with people who feel comfortable when they're telling you things that aren't going so well, then hopefully they'll be telling you as well when things are going well. So the University of York runs a staff survey every 3 years. They ask a lot of questions about what it's like to work there, the work you're doing. Are you working too hard? Have you not got enough to do? Are you being challenged? Do you like your office space? It's really comprehensive, but it's only every 3 years, which seems like quite a long time between hearing about a problem and seeing whether you fixed it or not. So we're trying to introduce in our teams more regular quarterly surveys with a few questions about the problem areas that have come up, so that people can see, hopefully within just a few months, that changes are being made and that they're improving. And that's part of being responsive and listening to people. One of the key things to remember when you're working in a large organization is that the smaller the unit, the easier it is to change direction. If there are things in your own working practice that aren't right, you just need to change them yourself. That's quite easy. If it's just your team, you can usually get your half a dozen people or so in your closest team to implement changes. If I want to get the whole of the marketing team to do something, well, it's harder, but we can still do it. But making those changes across the whole of the university are really, really hard. Malcolm Gladwell wrote this book called The Tipping Point, which is about how big sweeping changes happen. And he talked about epidemics. So he said the paradox of the epidemic is that in order to create one contagious movement, you often have to create many, many small movements first. And we can be part of those small movements. We can be those slight alterations to our ship's course that can end up making a difference. I'll give you an example that he uses in this book called the broken windows theory, which you may have heard of. It's a theory that suggests that by fixing just small acts of crime and vandalism, by fixing broken windows in empty buildings or cleaning graffiti off subway trains, you can reduce crime in general, even really serious crime. So the theory is that you have an empty building with a broken window. And once one window is broken, someone just thinks, well, we can break another, and then a few more. And then after a while, the building's covered in graffiti, the door's been kicked down, and it's a place where drug deals happen. But by fixing these things early on, you can mitigate against this and make sure that these things don't happen. New York City saw a huge drop in crime, even serious crimes like murder and assault in the 1990s. And part of that was due to their implementation of the broken windows theory. They would clean subway cars when they got back in every evening to rub the graffiti off them. They clamped down on things like fare dodging and littering. And just changing these small places, making places nicer environments to live, did help to reduce really, really serious crime as well. So the nature of big organizations is that everyone works in their own section. That's unavoidable. It's really important that we have a load of financial specialists working with finance, and it's really good that we have people who are trained in the right area doing student support. And it's obviously a very good idea that we have academics who understand about archaeology teaching in the archaeology department. But I think that by clearing up our own sections that we're working in, by making our own team culture better, and sharing, like I'm doing with you today, how we're hoping to improve, it can become a tipping point for other parts in the organization as well. So I don't have all the answers about how to change your organization, how to change direction at all, but I honestly believe that we do all have the chance to start making those small changes within our own teams, and that those changes do make a difference, and they do affect the way that an organization is going. And it may well be that even the smallest of nudges can help you avoid complete disaster.